What do you get when a Hollywood icon walks on stage, holding guitar in the middle of a live rock concert? 2 days after a legend dies. It wasn't a movie. It wasn't planned. And no one in the crowd saw it coming. Johnny Depp, yes, that Johnny Depp, walked out under the flashing lights of London's O2 Arena and joined Alice Cooper in a tribute that left fans stunned, speechless, and some even in tears. And the song they played? Let's just say it was Ozzy's anthem, and the crowd knew every word. In this video, we'll break down exactly what happened on that stage, how Depp's entrance caught everyone off guard, why Alice Cooper's reaction was more emotional than expected, and the hidden story behind this tribute, including Depp's personal connection to Ozzy Osbourne and the band they secretly built together. Plus, we'll reveal what most fans didn't notice about the final performance, and the subtle message hidden in the set list. So stay with us till the end, because this isn't just a celebrity moment, it's a powerful goodbye to a rock legend. Welcome to Story Spot, where every story hits harder when the spotlight fades. If you're into music legends, surprise appearances, and real stories that shake the stage, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you don't miss what's next. When Ozzy Osbourne passed away on July 22nd, 2025, the world didn't just lose a rock star. It lost a force, a presence, a living storm who once had to head off a bat on stage, and then, somehow, became a symbol of resilience, rebellion, and raw, unfiltered music. He was 76 years old, and even in his final years, marked by health scares, surgeries, and public struggles, he carried himself with the same fire that first made him famous in the 1970s. Ozzy wasn't just the Prince of Darkness, as fans called him. He was one of the founding fathers of heavy metal, a genre born in the dark backrooms of Birmingham, England, and raised under the crushing guitars of Black Sabbath. For over 5 decades, Ozzy never stopped being Ozzy. He screamed louder, pushed further, and stayed defiantly alive in a music world that often forgets its rebels. When the news broke that morning, tributes started pouring in from every corner of the internet. Reddit threads lit up with thousands of comments, from longtime fans sharing memories to young musicians thanking him for the inspiration. On X, formerly Twitter, hashtags like hashtag RIP Ozzy and hashtag Prince of Darkness surged to the top globally. Instagram stories became digital candlelight vigils. Clips from concerts, throwback interviews, and the unforgettable moment Ozzy headlined the 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham despite spinal issues that had left him almost immobile. But for Alice Cooper, it wasn't just news. It was personal. Cooper had shared stages, green rooms, and chaotic hotel lobbies with Ozzy since the 1970s. Both were known for their theatricality. Alice with his guillotine and blood-stained shirts, Ozzy with his crucifixes and howls. They were pioneers of the grotesque in rock, but beneath the eyeliner and fog machines, they were also brothers in arms. That morning, July 25th, Alice Cooper woke up in Cardiff, Wales, preparing for a sold-out concert at the Motorpoint Arena. The show was part of a limited UK run featuring Cooper, members of his original band, and his supergroup, the Hollywood Vampires. Just hours before soundcheck, his team received confirmation Ozzy was gone. The reports had started to swirl the day before, but Cooper refused to believe them until the official statement was released. He was devastated, but he also knew the show had to go on. The name Hollywood Vampires wasn't just a clever band title. It was a real drinking club Cooper and other rock legends formed in the 1970s. Its unofficial members? Keith Moon, Ringo Starr, Mickey Dolenz, and yes, Ozzy Osbourne. It was a group of men who had seen too much, drank too much, and somehow lived to tell the tale. They met in LA's Rainbow Bar and Grill and vowed to out-party each other. Most didn't survive. Ozzy did. So, when Cooper took the stage in Cardiff that night, it wasn't just another tour stop. It was a tribute. Quiet at first, no flashy announcement, no social media banner, just a decision made backstage. Tonight is for Ozzy. Alice swapped his usual wardrobe for a black tee with Ozzy's face printed on it. A single spotlight hit the shirt before he even spoke a word. The crowd, still unsure, murmured as the band plugged in. That's when Cooper stepped up to the mic. He was the bat-biting madman, the metal preacher, the survivor, Alice said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. This one's for our brother, our vampire, Our friend. Here's to Ozzy. No one screamed. No one clapped at first. Just silence. Like everyone there needed a second to register that their idol, the man who gave them Crazy Train Iron Man, was really gone. Then came the roar. Loud, raw, and honest. It's worth noting that Ozzy had been dealing with serious health issues for years. In 2019, he revealed he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a condition he had battled privately for nearly 6 years. He underwent multiple surgeries to correct neck damage after a fall. He canceled tours, disappeared from public appearances, and fans feared the worst. But every time, he came back. Even his last major public appearance, at the 2024 Ozfest reunion, was a surprise. He sat on a custom-built throne, performed only 2 songs, but the message was clear. I'm not done yet. And he wasn't. Until now. For Alice Cooper, the loss hit deeper because of the timing. They had spoken only a few weeks earlier. Cooper had mentioned wanting to do one last project with the original members of Sabbath. Ozzy was interested, but tired. Let's see how I feel after this next round, he had said, referring to a treatment cycle in Switzerland. They never got to have that session. That night in Cardiff, Cooper's set was slightly altered. Behind the scenes, the band made the call. Close with a Black Sabbath classic. Something raw. Something only Ozzy could own. And that's where the moment began to take shape. The one that would send shockwaves through rock media for days to come. But we'll get to that in a minute. What matters here is the emotional setup. Alice Cooper, already scheduled to perform, finds out mere hours before showtime that his longtime friend and fellow rock titan has died. And instead of canceling or giving a short tribute, he dedicates the entire show to Ozzy's memory, without making it about himself. It wasn't a publicity stunt. It wasn't a scripted moment. It was grief on stage. A goodbye dressed in guitar solos and gravel-throated vocals. And in that crowd of thousands, no one knew what was about to happen next. Because just before the final set began, someone unexpected walked out onto that stage. And everything changed. It was July 25th, 2025, just 3 days after the death of Ozzy Osbourne, and yet the energy outside London's O2 Arena felt more like a celebration than a wake. The venue, a towering structure shaped like a glowing white dome, pulsed with anticipation. It wasn't just a night for music. It was a gathering of generations. A line of fans stretched across the plaza, from young adults in vintage band tees to older rockheads, reliving the days when vinyl, not streaming, ruled the world. Inside, the 20,000-seat arena was packed to the rafters. The floor vibrated beneath the boots of thousands of fans as crew members finalized sound checks and pyrotechnics. Posters all over the venue read, Alice Cooper and Friends, Live in London, with Judas Priest featured as co-headliners. But nobody knew yet just how big those friends would turn out to be. The crowd wasn't quiet. This was London, a city that grew up on Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Led Zeppelin. People had come not just to hear music, but to feel it, to scream it, to lose their voices before midnight. And this lineup delivered exactly what they came for: raw, aggressive, unfiltered rock. Alice Cooper's reputation as a showman wasn't new. He'd been shocking, thrilling, and entertaining audiences since the 1960s, blending horror theatrics with hard-hitting riffs. But tonight, there was something heavier in the air. Not just smoke machines or flashing lights. Something emotional. Something unsaid. The kind of energy that clung to your skin. The set started late, almost deliberately. The stage crew delayed the lights by a few minutes, letting the murmur grow into a buzz. Fans speculated whether Alice would say something about Ozzy. Rumors had already begun swirling online, posts on Facebook and Reddit hinting that this night might be more than just a typical stop on the tour. Something felt different, and it was. When the lights finally dimmed, the roar was deafening. Alice Cooper took the stage in signature fashion: black leather, top hat, snake wrapped around his neck. The spotlight caught the glint of silver rings on his fingers as he raised a microphone to his lips. But before launching into the first verse, he paused. The screen behind him flickered, just briefly, with a black and white image of Ozzy Osbourne, young and wild, in a screaming pose from a 1972 Volume 4 tour. No name, no date, just his face. The message was loud without a single word spoken. The band launched into "No More Mr. Nice Guy," and the audience responded like they'd been holding in their lungs for weeks. What followed was a masterclass in live performance. Riffs collided with roars, and the stage became a firestorm of strobes and shadow. But even amid the chaos, a sense of purpose hummed underneath each note. Cooper tore through hit after hit. "Under My Wheels," "Feed My Frankenstein," "I'm 18. Each song delivered with the precision and madness only Alice could bring. But between the songs, he said very little. Fans noticed. They expected more banter, more blood, more of the old antics. But tonight was about something deeper. It was building to something. When Judas Priest took the stage mid-show, the momentum didn't stop. Rob Halford, with his silver goatee and chrome trench coat, brought thunder with Breaking the Law and Living After Midnight. The audience, now whipped into a frenzy, bounced as if the O2's floor was spring-loaded. Between the two acts, there was barely a moment to breathe, but it wasn't chaotic. It was ritual. Around 10:30 p.m., the lights dimmed again. Most fans assumed this was the final set, the encore set, but something about the shift felt different. Backstage, a quiet conversation had just ended. Alice Cooper stood by the wings with a guitar tech and a security guard. Next to him stood a man wearing sunglasses indoors, a dark scarf loosely hanging around his neck, and a guitar in hand. Most of the staff had already figured it out. The internet hadn't. Yet, as the drum intro to Black Sabbath's Paranoid kicked in, a low rumble swept across the crowd. Fans recognized the beat instantly. Ozzy's most famous track, released in 1970. But Cooper wasn't at the mic. He was off to the side. Instead, Johnny Depp walked onto the stage. Yes, Johnny Depp, the actor, the icon, the one people still associate with Jack Sparrow and Scissorhands. But this wasn't a Hollywood cameo. It wasn't a publicity stunt. This was something else. Depp, a skilled guitarist in his own right, has been part of the band Hollywood Vampires with Alice Cooper and Joe Perry since 2015. He's played to arenas before, but rarely in such a charged moment. Tonight wasn't about star power. It was about tribute. The reaction from the crowd was instant and disbelieving. At first, some fans thought it was a look-alike. Then cameras zoomed in. Screens lit up. And the energy exploded. Phones shot like fireworks. The arena turned into a sea of glowing screens and open mouths. But Depp didn't speak. He just slung his guitar forward, found his place in the song, and began playing the unmistakable riff of Paranoid. It was gritty, unpolished, loud, exactly as it should be. Alice Cooper returned to the mic for vocals, but he didn't steal the spotlight. Depp wasn't just a guest. He was part of the tribute. The emotion on Cooper's face said it all. Nostalgia, pain, respect. This wasn't scripted. This wasn't clean. It was raw grief played through distortion, pedals, and sweat. Behind them, the screen showed a slow-motion loop of Ozzy performing live, arms outstretched, eyes closed, rain pouring down at some forgotten festival. It wasn't captioned. It didn't need to be. As the song hit its final note, Cooper raised his fist and yelled into the mic. This one was for Ozzy. The entire arena erupted, but they weren't done. Johnny Depp stayed on stage for one more number. School's Out, but this version wasn't the one fans expected. It was heavier, slower at times, played like a farewell anthem. And by the time the final chords rang out, most people weren't dancing. They were watching, holding their breath, because whether they realized it or not, they had just witnessed history. The lights shifted. A single spotlight hit center stage. Alice Cooper had just stepped aside after the thunderous energy of Judas Priest's final encore. The crowd thought the night might be winding down. Just a few thank yous, a bow, maybe one more song. But then something changed. There was a silence. Not technical, not accidental. It was intentional, like the breath before a storm. From the side of the stage, a silhouette appeared. Slim, lean, wrapped in a long dark coat with a loosely tied scarf falling across his chest. Sunglasses indoors. Guitar strapped across his body. A few fans near the front row squinted. A few shouted in disbelief. And then it hit them. It was Johnny Depp. For a split second, it didn't feel real. Phones shot into the air. The arena turned into a flurry of whispers and gasps. Was it really him? Was this planned? Was this a joke? It wasn't. Johnny didn't wave. He didn't pose. He didn't acknowledge the camera. Instead, he walked to his mark with quiet confidence, slung his guitar lower, and checked the tuning with the grace of someone who had done this before. Because he had. While the world may still associate him with Hollywood roles and tabloid headlines, Depp is a musician first. Long before he played Jack Sparrow, he played in garages and dive bars. He's collaborated with greats like Jeff Beck, Marilyn Manson, and even Tom Petty. But most notably, he's one-third of the rock supergroup Hollywood Vampires, alongside Alice Cooper and Aerosmith's Joe Perry. This wasn't Johnny Depp, the actor on stage. This was Johnny Depp, the guitarist, the bandmate, the friend. And on this night, just 3 days after Ozzy Osbourne's passing, he wasn't there for attention. He was there for respect. The opening chords of Paranoid blasted through the amps. A song so iconic, so deeply tied to Ozzy's legacy, that just hearing the first riff sent chills across the venue. The crowd didn't scream, they roared. Alice Cooper stepped back in with vocals, but kept his eyes locked on Johnny. This wasn't a show anymore. It had become a tribute, a ceremony, a communion of grief and grit, performed not with tears, but with volume. Depp's playing was sharp, controlled, and emotional. Every bend of the string, every pick scrape, it wasn't flashy, but it meant something. He leaned into the distortion like he was trying to bleed sound out of guitar, to speak through it. And he didn't miss a beat. What most people didn't know, at least not right away, was that Johnny Depp and Ozzy Osbourne shared a quiet connection offstage. Not just through music, but through mutual friends, studio sessions, and a deep reverence for the roots of rock. Depp had even once referred to Ozzy as a thunderstorm in human form. This moment on stage wasn't just symbolic. It was personal. He hadn't announced his appearance on social media. There were no teasers, no backstage hints. Even the O2 Arena staff had been told only minutes before that Depp would be joining. It was that spontaneous. And that's what made it powerful. In an industry where every surprise is usually choreographed weeks in advance, this was real. Alice Cooper had made the call. Johnny had shown up. No agents. No PR. Just music. The camera caught a rare close-up of Depp mid-song. Eyes closed, brow furrowed, mouth slightly open. Lost in it. Not performing. Processing. Like a man grieving the only way he knew how. With a guitar and a wall of sound behind him. Behind him, the giant LED screen cycled through old black and white photos of Ozzy. Some rare. Some iconic. One moment he was shirtless on stage in 1975, arms wide, open like a prophet of noise. The next he was older, seated on a stool with his trademark round glasses and cross necklace, smiling weakly at the camera. No captions, no tribute text, just memories flickering behind the music. When Paranoid ended, Alice raised a fist. The crowd was thunder, but Johnny still said nothing. He turned to the drummer, nodded, and stepped slightly forward, like he wasn't finished. Alice didn't have to ask. The band launched straight into School's Out, one of Cooper's biggest anthems. But tonight, it had a different energy, a bit more Sabbath in the tone, slower, angrier, louder. Johnny stayed up there through the entire song. At one point, he walked up beside Alice during a solo and leaned his forehead against his shoulder for just a second. No words exchanged. Just a quiet acknowledgement between friends. Fans might have expected Depp to grab a mic, maybe say something about Ozzy, maybe share a story. But he never did. He let the music speak. And somehow, that made it even louder. After the final note, he took off his guitar, nodded once to the crowd, and disappeared backstage as quietly as he had come. And that was it. A man of few words. But tonight, every chord he played said everything. The first riff hit like a memory. It was the unmistakable, distorted opening of Paranoid, a song so tied to Ozzy Osbourne's legacy that its first 3 notes could send a shockwave through any rock crowd. Released in 1970 by Black Sabbath, it had become more than a track. It was a battle cry, a scream against the system, a declaration of identity for generations of fans who didn't fit in. And on this night, July 25th, 2025, it became something else entirely, a farewell. As the lights bathed the O2 Arena in icy blue, Johnny Depp, now center stage, lowered his head. He didn't need to speak. No one did. The audience already knew what this was. It wasn't part of the scheduled set. It wasn't rehearsed for applause. It was a message in music, dedicated to a man whose voice had once thundered through the same arena years before. Alice Cooper stepped to the mic, gripping it tight with his gloved hand. This one for a brother, for a beast of the stage, for the bat-biting madman we all loved. Then he paused. This is for Ozzy. No pyrotechnics, no intro track, just raw chords, grit and grief. The drums kicked in, pounding through the chest of every person in the room. The bass growled beneath it, and when Alice let out that first growling lyric, "Finish with my woman, 'cause she couldn't help me with my mind," the place erupted. It was louder than before, but not chaotic. It felt reverent, like 20,000 people screaming not for entertainment, but in recognition. They were singing with their pain, with their memories, with their love. This wasn't just a cover. It was an inheritance. One rock god passing the torch to another, and a room full of fans catching it. Johnny played rhythm on the left side of the stage. His stance was quiet but fierce, knees bent, fingers moving with careful precision. He didn't try to overtake the spotlight. He didn't have to. His presence spoke enough. And if you looked closely, you'd see it just behind him, lit softly on the massive screen, a series of images of Ozzy over the decades. Each one faded into the next. A young Ozzy, eyes wide, microphone clenched in both hands like it might explode. A grinning father holding his children backstage. A frail, older man sitting on a leather couch, still wearing rings, still giving the camera that mischievous smile. The audience watched and listened, caught between nostalgia and noise. Alice's voice cracked slightly on the third verse, not from strain, but from emotion. And when the band hit the solo section, Johnny and the lead guitarist leaned into each other, guitars snarling like wolves circling grief. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't meant to be. There were no sync visuals, no over-rehearsed crescendos, just musicians playing as hard as they could, as honestly as they could, to honor someone who had done the same his entire life. As they moved toward the end of the song, Alice pulled back from the mic. He let the crowd carry the chorus. "Can you help me? Occupy my brain?" Oh, yeah. It was electric. Then came the final verse. Short, punchy, chaotic. And when the last line hit, "And so as you hear these words telling you now of my state," the band slowed just a bit. Not enough to ruin the rhythm. Just enough to make it hurt. The last chord rang out and held for a moment longer than usual. Alice Cooper stepped forward again. His chest heaved. His face was slick with sweat and emotion. Then he raised the mic one last time. That was for Ozzy. He didn't yell it. He said it softly, as if handing it off to the night itself. And just like that, the crowd exploded, not just in cheers, but in a kind of shared release. Fans raised their hands. Some cried. A few embraced. People who'd never met were united in something greater than a concert. They'd witnessed a moment that wasn't about Alice Cooper or Johnny Depp or even Black Sabbath. It was about Ozzy's legacy, one song at a time. A few sharp-eyed fans noticed something even more personal, Alice's T-shirt. It wasn't part of his usual theatrical getup. It was a plain black shirt with Ozzy's face printed on it. Smiling, screaming, iconic. At the bottom, in bold white letters, it read, "Still louder than hell." And behind the band, on the main screen, one final image appeared. It was Ozzy, older, seated, a quiet moment from backstage. He looked tired but proud. Underneath, in tiny white font, was a single date, 1949 to 2025. No goodbye, no quote, just that. And in the silence that followed, as the band reset their gear, fans stood frozen, knowing they'd just watched something they might never see again. But the night wasn't over. Johnny Depp hadn't left the stage, and Alice Cooper was about to make one final decision. The stage was still dim. The final note of Paranoid had just rung out, but no one moved. Johnny Depp was still there, guitar slung over his shoulder, eyes down. Alice Cooper stepped back from a mic. No one said anything. The crowd wasn't sure the show was over, or if they were all just catching their breath. And then the unmistakable chords of School's Out hit the speakers, sharp, dirty, rebellious. Instantly, the crowd roared. But this version was different. It wasn't the polished, upbeat version Cooper usually played to close his sets. It was slower, heavier, thicker with distortion. The guitar tone was rougher, angrier, almost like a funeral march wrapped in leather. There was a subtle but undeniable tension behind every note, as if the band wasn't just celebrating school being out for summer, but life being out, full stop. Johnny didn't walk off. He dug in. As the drums kicked up, Depp turned to face three men who had quietly stepped out behind the amps: Michael Bruce, Neil Smith, and Dennis Dunaway, original members of the Alice Cooper Band. The crowd saw them and let out another wave of cheers. It was an unexpected reunion inside an already unexpected night. This wasn't just a performance anymore. It was becoming something historical. Alice Cooper stepped back to the mic, raised his hand slowly, and shouted, "For Ozzy and for every outsider who never fit in." And with that, they launched into the full version. The chorus hit like a tidal wave. School's out for summer. School's out forever. People jumped. They sang. They screamed the words like a prayer for rebellion. But if you look closer, the energy wasn't just joy, it was catharsis. There was something primal about this encore, something needed. Johnny moved across the stage with more presence now. Not flashy, still reserved, but more open. He played close to Dennis Dunaway, nodding in rhythm, matching licks like they'd done this 100 times before. To most in the arena, this moment felt spontaneous. But to the musicians on stage, it felt right, familiar, sacred. Behind them, the visuals on the big screen kept rolling, this time, not just Ozzy. They showed grainy footage of 1970s concerts, punk riots, black boots stomping across stage floors, fans motioning in the mud, and rock stars throwing guitars like grenades. It was a collage of everything Ozzy, Alice, and their generation had built. Near the end of the song, Alice dropped to one knee and held the mic out to the crowd. "School's out!" the fans shouted. Forever. Confetti didn't fall. Lights didn't explode. There was no dramatic curtain drop. Just thunder. Just music. Just a room full of strangers singing in unison for something bigger than themselves. As the final chord echoed through the arena, Alice walked over to Johnny. They stood side by side, both facing the crowd. Neither spoke. Johnny gave a small nod. Just once. Alice looked out, his voice calm now, and said, "We keep losing our heroes. But tonight, we didn't lose the noise." The arena lit up one last time. No encore after the encore. No overstay. The moment had passed, and it was perfect. Johnny Depp walked off stage the same way he entered. Quiet, focused, and unforgettable. And in the silence that followed, you could almost hear Ozzy's voice in the distance, laughing, howling, reminding everyone that legends never really leave. For some, it might have just looked like a surprise performance. A celebrity guitarist stepping in for one song, and a band playing a classic hit. But for those who truly understood the history, the pain, and the personality behind the music, this moment meant everything. Johnny Depp wasn't just making an appearance. He was showing up for his friend. He and Alice Cooper had formed the band Hollywood Vampires in 2015, but their connection went much deeper. They weren't just bandmates. They were brothers in arms from two different worlds, one from Hollywood, one from hard rock. And their shared mission was simple: keep the legacy of fallen rock legends alive. The name Hollywood Vampires itself was a tribute to the original 1970s drinking club that Alice, Ozzy, and other rock gods belonged to. That group had lived hard, lost many, and seen more than most. So when Ozzy Osbourne died, it didn't just shake the music industry. It hit their tribe, their inner circle, one of their own. That's why Johnny's presence on stage mattered. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't about the cameras. It was about honor. Depp didn't say a single word that night, but his silence spoke volumes. By showing up, by playing Ozzy's most iconic song without fanfare or spotlight, he joined Alice in creating something rare in today's world, a public moment of real, unscripted grief. For fans, it felt like watching a private ceremony take place on a massive public stage. It blurred the line between audience and family, between fan and fellow mourner. In that moment, they weren't watching a show, they were participating in a funeral that roared instead of wept. It was also a reminder that rock and roll isn't just music. It's memory, it's rebellion, it's survival. And when one of its gods falls, the others don't whisper. They play louder. Alice Cooper knew that. Johnny Depp knew that. And by the end of the night, every fan in that arena knew it too. The tribute wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. It was raw, cracked open, and full of power. And that's what made it unforgettable. By the time the concert ended and the lights went up inside the O2 Arena, social media had already exploded. Clips of Johnny Depp walking on stage mid-set were everywhere. Shaky phone footage, zoomed-in crowd videos, and whispers caught on audio. Wait, is that really Johnny Depp? He's playing Paranoid. With Alice. For Ozzy. What the hell is happening right now? Within an hour, hashtags like hashtag Ozzy Tribute, hashtag Johnny Depp Live, and hashtag Alice Cooper London started trending on X and TikTok. Fans outside the venue were still standing in groups, processing what they had just witnessed. Some were crying. Others were staring at their screens, rewatching the footage as if trying to believe it really happened. People magazine ran the headline first. Johnny Depp joins Alice Cooper on stage in surprise tribute to Ozzy Osbourne. They called it a raw, emotional farewell and praised Depp's presence for balancing the madness with quiet soul. American Songwriter followed with a glowing recap, calling the performance a rare moment of authentic rock history playing out in real time. Reddit threads under r/music and r/heavy metal were filled with stunned users sharing their favorite part. Some saying they hadn't cried at a concert since Nirvana, others calling it the last true rock moment of our time. But it wasn't just about the surprise. It was about the tone. People noticed that it wasn't flashy, that there were no dramatic speeches or rehearsed tributes. Instead, what moved fans most was how unfiltered and real the moment felt. Alice Cooper didn't try to steal attention. Johnny Depp didn't pose for photos. They just played, and that authenticity struck a nerve. One viral fan post read, "I've seen Alice 4 times, but this was different. Johnny didn't say a word, and I remember that forever." The silence said it all. Even industry critics, usually hesitant to praise celebrity appearances, admitted this was different. Variety noted that Depp earned his place on that stage, and that his guitar work was surprisingly tender during a song that's normally all rage. In a world oversaturated with staged events, fake tears, and trending moments built for views, this tribute stood out. It wasn't meant to be content, but it became history anyway. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Some nights are just concerts, but every once in a while, a concert becomes a memory that will live forever. On July 25th, 2025, at London's O2 Arena, we didn't just witness great music. We witnessed a farewell. A silent man with a guitar, a rock legend with a voice, and a room full of strangers united by the sound of one song, played not for applause, but for Ozzy. That night proved something powerful. Even when legends fall silent, their noise echoes through those who remain. And sometimes, the greatest tributes don't need words at all. If this story moved you, if it made you remember, feel, or simply pause, give this video a like. And if you love real stories that hit deep and stay with you long after the screen fades, subscribe to Story Spot and hit the bell icon so you never miss what's next. We tell stories that matter. And tonight, we say goodbye to a man who mattered to millions. Rest in power, Ozzy. You were never meant to be quiet.